Greetings in Jesus' name. It is indeed a privilege to be here together with you, family of God, and some are familiar faces that I see, some are not so familiar. Doesn't really make a big difference. We're all here together to worship and to acknowledge our great God and His love to us and being so gracious to us. It's always a pleasure for us, for me and my wife, to come to Nova Scotia to visit our parents and relatives and many other friendly people. People in Nova Scotia are mostly friendly, right? Yes, so it is indeed a privilege for us to spend some time with the family here, and it's a special offer that you have extended to me to use the pulpit this morning to present or to talk about God and His care for us. And I know it's always a challenge for me if I have familiar people in front of me that speak Low German better than English, than to try to speak in English when most of you know much better English than I do. And so that is a little interesting scenario in itself. But my wife and I were in Bolivia some 20 years ago, where I had the privilege of sitting under an educated man who knew several languages very well. And he said that when he listened to the real German people, how they were swimming, with the words and how they were expressing opinions and this and that, he felt very small compared to the more educated Germanic people. He knew Low German, he knew High German, he knew English and Spanish. It was a delight to sit and listen to him, how he had absorbed the fact of different languages and how people use that. And in the course, there was this conversation of two, the English person and the German person. They were discussing various words, terminologies that they were using. And the Englishman asked the German, "How do you say okay in German?" And well, he didn't quite know, but how do you say it? So even these highly educated people struggle with terminologies, and sometimes you grapple for a word and you just don't find it. And so if I use some German words, please understand. I'm going to talk today about the art of communication, and it is interesting to know that we can practice, we can learn, and become better communicators. And I was brought to this verse that I learned in school about the fact that we are supposed to speak well and not to carry on with bad communications or corrupt communications. And the verse I'm going to use this morning is 1 Corinthians 15:33 out of the New Testament, and it says, "Evil communications corrupt good manners." So the art of communication, we're going to look at various aspects of how do we communicate and how do other people communicate to us, and how does God communicate to us as his people. So we notice these words, evil. What does evil do? What can it do? And it can be applied to how we communicate to other people, and it can be corrupt, and it can destroy good manners. And when I think about how we communicate, I know it's very, very important that we know how to communicate well, and sometimes we're not so perfect at it. But I have a concern when people start to communicate in such a way to destroy values and maybe even certain aspects of tradition or aspects of religion or about societies. Perhaps there is a potential of degrading certain aspects of our upbringing or of other societies, how they operate. And I think we all need to bear in mind that not our society or our group of people is not necessarily the best, but we can learn a lot from other societies as well, other groups of people. And even negative speech is destructive, and we should always try to speak in such a way that we build up instead of tearing down. Proverbs 25, verse 11 says, a word in season is like apples of gold. And we've had a privilege of eating a lot of apples on our trip this time. And they're really good. So it seems he makes that comparison with eating apples. A word that is spoken in season, just at the right time, can be encouraging, can be uplifting, can give courage, right? And it's very important that our young people learn how to communicate that well, this aspect. But then I come to the verse where Jesus says in Matthew 13, and he is a perfect communicator. And this is what he said. He said, seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear or understand. And that has puzzled me a lot. How is that possible? He is the perfect teacher, the perfect instructor, and he had this lamentation, or these people hear me, but they don't understand, and they see me, and they don't know me. And here he was trying to point them to God, and the reason why he came was to reveal God. So he came in flesh. He was here to reveal who God was, who sent him to save mankind. And as if these people did not understand what the purpose was. With seeing eyes, they don't see, and with hearing ears, they don't hear. I don't think he was talking about language. I think he was talking about concepts. Weren't able to perceive or to understand what he was trying to teach. And thus, he had to say that. They don't see well, and they don't hear well. How do people communicate? There are 5 fundamental types by which we carry on a communication. And one is verbally, and the other one is we can communicate non-verbally, without words. And most of us are able to read written material. We read, we understand visually, and by listening. So we communicate not just when somebody speaks in an audible voice, but there are various approaches, various means of how people communicate, well or poorly. So we have verbal, nonverbal, written, visual, and listening. And students in our classes, in your classes, work with all these different types. Verbal communication is best used when something has to be discussed. Best used when something has to be discussed, as we did in our Sunday school class this morning. Verbal discussions is a way of communicating. Or when someone has to be complimented or reprimanded verbally, right? That's one way we communicate with each other. Verbal communication makes the conveying of thoughts faster and easier. Då red vi. Då försöker vi oss ingen till förstänja, ja. Vi förstår oss manchmal nicht gut, und dann machen wir rede, right? Something that takes skill. Sometimes it's an exercise. How to communicate better. But this is how we can express our thoughts. So people are saying, what are you thinking? Well, I don't really know. But definitely there's something that you're worried about. Or du bist so versunken Gedanken. What's the matter with you? You're sunk deep in thoughts. What is the matter? As we start to to express, as we start to communicate, we understand where that person is coming from or what he's going through. Some of you may have remembered this incident where there were two men that went visiting, and as is custom in our culture, maybe more so back then than it's now, but anyhow, these two men were together and had maybe a couple hour session. None of them said a word other than just a greeting, and then everything was silent. At the end, when everything was said and done, one said to the other, "Wasn't this a blessed evening?" Without communicating, they had a wonderful time together, being together in each other's presence. And they had communicated. They felt like this was a blessed event. You ever try that? I don't know what I would do if I was having a visitor who wouldn't talk to me. I would feel like shaking his head and let's get started. We're here to communicate. We're here to talk about interesting things, What about our conduct? We had something about our conduct speaks as well. The way we conduct ourselves in society or in secret. First, Colossians 4, verse 6, "Let your speech at all times be gracious and pleasant, seasoned with salt, so that you will know how to answer each one who questions you." Your speech says a lot. Let it be gracious, pleasant, seasoned with salt, that you will have an answer when somebody asks you questions. I like when people ask questions, if they're not too tough. But tough questions help us to think in a way that we're trying to solve the problem. We try to solve the question. We try to have an answer for the question. Jesus did that very well. He was a perfect instructor, a perfect teacher, and yet people could not understand because of the hardness of their heart. Sometimes people communicate in silence, like I said earlier, and a prime example is Jesus. There was a time when he said nothing, and he was challenged by Pilate. And Jesus gave no answer. Not even a single charge. This was appropriate time to communicate through silence. Not through a bunch of words, but just simply, he remained silent. Even though the highest authority was speaking to him, he did not consent. Gave no answer, not even to a single charge, when interrogated by the governor, Pontius Pilate, in Matthew 27, verse 14. What does this tell us or show us? Why would he talk? This was a chance to speak, to communicate, to preach maybe. He didn't. But in this instance of silence, when he kept silence, he highlighted his authority. Pilate did not have the sole authority over him. Jesus still kept his authority. His wisdom. He knew when to remain silent. And that's something is a little tricky as well. When shall we just remain silent and not, especially if it's very challenging or you need a good answer? Sometimes it's good to just keep your peace. And that's what he did as well. His wisdom to know when to speak and when not to communicate. And he was committed to carry out God's will. Whatever it would take. He did not defend himself. He was there like a sheep. Very vulnerable. This allowed him to endure suffering without retaliation. And that's quite often the case when we start to discuss. Sometimes it's a very heated discussion. It actually just proves who we are. It just proves who we are once we have this anger in us, or we feel like retaliating, or in defense, where we object to whatever is said in whatever way. But I think it's good to sit and to absorb and to find an appropriate answer, which will help for to release the tension if there is tension. Another example in the Old Testament is Daniel the prophet. The outside world was watching him, how he was going to conduct, how he was going to obey. And they got his message. His enemies saw and perceived what he was standing for. He would not cave in to any decree that a godless king would have him do, but he kept praying 3 times a day, daily, in the open, so people would see. I don't think Daniel did that because he wanted to be seen per se, but just to acknowledge that I can pray wherever and whenever I want to communicate with God. And God was communicating with him as well. And that was a trigger that really angered the people that were watching him. Just his conduct, just a conversation with God before an open window. Our language is a wonderful tool, and so is Plautich. Back in the days when we were in Bolivia, we were cautioned not to forget your Low German, because there's so many Low German people that need help. And if you're all changing into a different language, how will they be reached? That was a concern I heard over in Bolivia some 20 years ago, and I think it had validity. I think there was a reason why this concern was voiced. So here we have it, right? English and German and Spanish and what have you, no? Getting along together, that's the main key. It doesn't really matter what language we use, but may it be upbuilding, may it be, maybe support each other and acknowledge each other and recognize each other. It is a wonderful tool to touch. By what we say, by what we communicate, we may touch people in a very sensitive way, in a very important way, to encourage people that are going through tough times, just by saying a kind word. Nowadays, there's telecommunication, many venues that are being used, the radio, and other media platforms that are being used more than ever. And I believe God uses that as well. And as his followers, we want to use it well as we can. God has designed his creation with many things that communicate on their own, as was alluded to this morning about the fall colors, which we have enjoyed tremendously. Haven't been disappointed at all. And the beauty of the fall colors that you enjoy so much here. So it speaks to us. God communicates to us through his creation. As was said, we don't worship creation, but we worship the Creator, the one who has built all these or made all these things, created all these things. And he communicates with us in many different ways that communicate on their own. A sudden bolt of lightning communicates, illuminates the skies all of a sudden. Many ways, God has many ways how he communicates with us and allows us to see his power. Or the powerful crack of a thunder. These are all communicators. The forceful wind, hurricanes. Or the quiet waterfalls, the soft rustling leaves. Do animals communicate as well? Does God use animals? Does he use the cats or dogs? What about a donkey? There was a king that hired King Balak of Moab. He hired Balaam to come and curse the Israelites, God's chosen people. And he traveled with a donkey. And it came to a point where the donkey was talking. So God can use animals to communicate to godless people, to speak to people that have a bad agenda, that have bad things in mind, He used a donkey, and a very powerful way, mysterious way to us, but God communicated through a donkey. King Moab had a desire that Balaam would come and curse God's chosen people. He did not succeed with that attempt. Do birds communicate? I think birders would say yes. Jesus has often pointed us to the birds, how they live and how they thrive and how they add beauty to creation as well. Can we communicate with God? Obviously, yes. How do we communicate with God? Often through reflections. Times of just spending time with God alone. And it's interesting to see the example of Martha and Mary and Bethany, and that was a place Jesus frequently visited. He loved to spend time with this group of people, 2 or 3. He loved that place. He loved to interact with these women. He loved to spend a lot of time with them. And I've had to think about, let's just say, in today's world, had this been a home where there was all kinds of bickering, all kinds of fighting, brawls, or simply all kinds of juicy gossip items, conversations, would he have felt welcome by such behavior? Would we find the same motive or desire to spend time in such an environment? I think you see the difference. He wants to bring peace in every situation where people open up to him. He will be able to bring them to a point where they can experience peace and love and forgiveness. Just had to think, maybe that was one of the factors why Jesus frequently visited Mary and Martha's place. Sometimes you wonder why people basically just talk about negativities, about almost anything. Very little positive stuff that's being shared. The obvious need of good communication is of great importance. Very important that we continue. Not to exaggerate and create something bigger than what really was intended. So we have to exercise the skill of communication. Evil communication corrupt, or we could say destroys friendships and good manners. Sometimes organizations will invite these motivational speakers. They need some kind of push or some kind of momentum of people that are very motivated. But sometimes these motivational speakers can't get along with their own wives. They know how to speak in front of a pulpit, but they can't get along with their own wife. Some people may know all about finances, how things operate, but they experience bankruptcy themselves. Communication can destroy friendships and good manners. The things we hear in societies are usually an indicator or work like a gauge. What do we hear? What do we perceive? What is the common conversations that you hear at a coffee shop or at your job? It seems like we have a tendency to be drawn to negative. negative things more than the positive. I don't know why that is. It just seems to be the way it is, the way we operate. We're so intent to hear negative things, breakups, or things that went wrong or collapsed. And then we make stories about them, right? We communicate. As this is a caution, let's strive for upbuilding conversations where we build each other up in love, in Christian virtues and values. Jesus says, he says this in German, was das Herz voll ist, geht der Mund über. For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, is a biblical quote. Matthew 12:34. Actually, what this means is that what a person truly believes, what you truly believe and desire, will eventually be revealed through their words. It will be revealed, what we've been thinking and what we have desired. A person's speech and actions are considered to be the fruit of their heart. What is actually motivating, or what is actually dear to that person? It is actually revealed through our speech and actions, indicating whether the treasure within them is good or evil. What do we hold dear? What is that we cherish a lot? Indicating. It's a good indicator. So when a boyfriend or when a boy has found a girlfriend, he talks about his girlfriend a lot. It's dear to him. He can't keep silent. Vice versa as well. It's something that they treasure, that they have found, that they appreciate. They talk about those things, the lovely things. How much do we share the joy that we have in Jesus to people around us or among us? What he has done, how he has saved us, and what he's still doing for us. What do we talk about? What is our heart filled with, good or evil? The things of this world. Do we talk mostly about the things of this world? Do we find ways to encourage each other and to build them up? I've enjoyed poetry. I guess my name says it in German. And Faith Builders has helped us a lot, has helped me a lot to enjoy poetry to a greater extent. And I'm going to read a couple of verses here in High German. Would you allow me to do that? Yeah? All right. This has to do about the friendship, the bond that we have in Jesus. And in times when there is trouble and difficult times, as we all know and experience from time to time, what do we hold on to, cling to? And this little poem is about Fass Jesu Hand. Grab the hand of Jesus, hold on to him. So verse 1 says, Fass Jesu Hand und schau getrost nach oben. Cling to Jesus' hand and look up above. Schenkt Geborgenheit dir tief ins Herz. Geborgenheit. Vertraue ihm, auch wenn die Zweifel toben. Glaube ihm, der niemals dich verlässt. Believe in this friend that is never going to leave you, especially when there's doubts. An Jesu Hand, da enden alle Fragen. The questions we have, there are answers. Ganz nah bei ihm erlebt man Herrlichkeit. Glorious thing, close to him. Close in his presence. Hat gesagt, mein Kind, du brauchst nicht zagen. You don't need to despair. Ich bring dich durch, auch durch den Sturm der Zeit. I'll bring you through the storm, in the storm of time. Wie Freunde tun, so reden wir zusammen as friends. Meet each other, talk to each other together. Ein Tag ist schöner noch als der vorher. Und wenn ich müde bin, hilft mir tragen wie ein Freund. So wird die Last nicht schwer. An Jesu Hand, da enden alle Fragen. Ganz nah bei ihm erlebt man Herrlichkeit. Hat gesagt, mein Kind, du brauchst nichts sagen. Ich bring dich durch, auch durch den Sturm der Zeit. Psalms 19 says, the heavens declare the glory of God. They communicate to us. Jesus has spoken to us through his word. When he came, he taught, and his teaching is still relevant today, is still applicable today. Let's pay attention to what he has to say to us, that we can truly follow in his footsteps. So we want to strengthen each other. We want to strengthen our families, the society in which we are, to build it up. Actually, there is three basic principles how societies survive or how they're established. And just let me point these three pillars out real quick. One is the culture in which we are, a group that's cultured in a certain way. The other factor, the other pillar would be traditions that are noteworthy, that have carried us on through ages, and then religion as well. These three pillars are actually strong components or indicators of almost any religion in this world. There will be these three factors: religion, tradition, and the culture in which they live, things they do. So it's very interesting to see how God works in people and shaping them and bringing them to the point where they acknowledge that God is truly a good God that communicates very well to us if we only listen. So may we be hearers or doers, not just hearers alone, as we continue on our journey with Jesus. So I'd just like to leave that with you this morning. May the peace of God rule in your hearts and continue to worship him and to receive from him as he communicates to you as well. Wherever we are, wherever we may go, we're never alone. I'd ask you to stand for a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be together. Thank you for your word and the way you communicate to us. Help us to be open to you and to receive what you want us to see and hear, and help us to be doers, not just listeners. I pray your blessing upon this congregation, each person that's in here this morning. Bless them as wherever they may go, wherever they're from, that the peace of Jesus would rule in their hearts as well. We thank you again that we have been able to share this hour together, and we thank you that your Holy Spirit is present and helps us and guides us. Pray for the elderly in this congregation. Bless them as well with health, strength, and may they still feel accepted and needed in this church. We thank you the way you have provided for our needs, and you will continue to be with us all the way to the end. Amen.